So, come here for a minute. Let me ask you a quick question. What if that poor performance, that performance below standard by your young person in school, has got almost nothing to do with the school? It's got almost nothing to do with how the teachers teach, whether the teachers are rubbish or what they do, or whether the way other people interact with them in class, bullies and all of that. In fact, what if it's got nothing to do with the ability or inability of your teenager? What if it's down to some innocent things that happens in the house? Now, when I say things that happen in the house, I'm not saying, you might be an irresponsible parent who doesn't take care or doesn't care at all about your child. In fact, it could be that you care too much about your young person. So this is not one of those videos that is aimed at, judging you or telling you how to be a parent. This is just a video that honestly looks at some things you might be doing, maybe out of love, that is affecting how your young person learns in school. And the video is actually inspired by a particular parent that I worked with a couple of years ago. Now, they had this teenage child who was constantly getting into trouble in school, was constantly being reported by teachers in school. Their performance was not up to standard. Their parents were sure that the child could do more, but for some reason, they don't seem to be performing as they should. And so I was called in to see if I could help this particular person. And as it is with most parents, the parents had two angles from which they were looking at this. So, could it be, and this is the path that most schools like considering, could it be that the child needs support to be able to learn better? Could it be that they're struggling with certain things like, autism, ADHD, some form of things that would mean they need special support? Or could it be that the school is just rubbish at what they do, or the teachers are not good at what they do? Or could it be that the child is being singled out because of the color of his skin or because of something unique about him? Could it be that that's the case? And those are the two options that the parents were fixated on. Those are the options they were constantly exploring to see if they could find solution to the problem. And for a lot of parents, actually, that's the paths. Those are the two paths that parents tend to consider. But when I came in, I brought in the third perspective, which is what I'm about to discuss with you in this video. Because there are things happening in the house, innocent, easy, simple things that definitely affects how young people behave in class, how they engage with their learning, how they perform in class. And those are the three things that I'm going to be talking to you about in this video. If you're a teacher or you work with young people in any way, for long hours, you would understand exactly where I'm coming from. And I wouldn't be surprised if one or two of the things I'm about to mention are actually familiar to you. But before we go on, I would quickly like to ask that you please support what we do by hitting that like button, by hitting that share button. Share with somebody, parent, teacher, carer, anyone you know who you think this video might benefit them. Let's jump into the meat of the gist then, shall we? Habit number one: constantly solving their problems for them. And this is one that I find a bit, tricky to discuss, because the natural disposition or tendency of most parents is to try to help their young people, because it's difficult to see your young person struggling, your lovely child, struggling with assignments, struggling to find solutions to whatever they seem to be going through, stumbling and struggling through life. It's natural for you to want to just come in and help them. But one thing I'd like you to do at this point is just cast your mind back to when that child was an infant trying to learn how to walk. If every time they stumbled, you dived in to stop them from falling down every now and then perhaps you would still have a young person who is sitting down somewhere and unable to walk. What you did then was to allow them to have some bruised knees every now and then, to stumble, to fall down, to cry. And every time they fell and stood back up, they got better at walking. And now you have a young person who maybe plays football, runs around, does a lot of physical things that they wouldn't have been able to do if you had stopped them from learning how to walk. That's exactly what we're saying here. If we step in for every wobble, our children will never learn to stand steady. Step in every wobble, they would never learn to stand steady. And so if you want them to be steady and to be able to approach life with everything they need to succeed in life, then you have to allow them struggle sometimes. A young person comes home with an assignment, a homework, very difficult. I read on some news, I think last week or so, of some parents who were complaining. And to be honest, when I saw that homework, it was a difficult one where their teenagers were given assignment from school. And I do not think the teachers actually checked to see how difficult that assignment was before they gave it to the children. But the process of solving that homework is as important as the answer to that homework. Allowing them to go through that process will force them to think, would force them to stretch their minds, and that does something to growth. That does something to mind. And so what you want to do is to support your young person. So you should think in the lines of, I am here with you. I will go through this with you, as opposed to saying, I'll do this for you. I'll take it from here. No, that's not how you want to help your young person to better prepare themselves for the future. There's a simple question that I always give to parents as the key. This thing I'm about to do for this young person, am I supporting them to grow, or am I taking away the opportunity of growth? If you answer that question honestly, then this point would have been carefully and perfectly addressed. Point number 2, inconsistent sleep routine. Now, consistency, sleep, and routine, those are the 3 words. Sleep is one of the biggest hidden factors behind school performance, and not many people are aware of this. Every teacher who works with young people would understand. And let's not even go to the teachers first. Now, think about yourself as an individual. When you've not had a good night's sleep, so you've had an all night awake doing work or something, or maybe praying, when you wake up in the morning, you're going to be a completely different person from the you that had a good night sleep. And what's responsible for that? Every time we take a sleep, and this is how I like to illustrate this. So imagine taking your car to the mechanics for repair, for service. Every time you go to sleep, that's what happens in your body. Your body repairs, cleans up, invigorates, prepares itself to return again the next day. And when you refuse to sleep, you're coming back to the next day unrefreshed, unprepared. And so you see grumpy people, you see young people who find it difficult to learn, young people who get touchy, tiny things that they would ordinarily take previously would become something, to fight about. That's a big problem when it comes to learning. And it's not just that. Because at that young teenage age, the brain is still developing. Sleep is an essential requirement for growth and development. And if you deprive young people of that sleep, what you're doing to them is permanent damage. So they go to class, unable to learn, memory, brain not functioning as it should. They're already tired before the day begins. And every time you're tired, your mind is tired, your eyes are lazy. Everything that is presented to you, you just find the easiest way out. And that's no way to be at peak performance in school. So you want to create one routine. And by routine is, you need to schedule a constant sleep routine. And when I say constant, I know that there will be instances where things would come up that you cannot control and they will go to bed a bit late. But that sleep routine, what it does is it creates this opportunity for the biological clock to know when to start shutting down, because sleeping is not necessarily when you go to bed. Now, the recommended time or hour of sleep for teenagers is usually between 8 to 10 hours. Now, if you calculate the start time of that 10 hours and you send your child to bed by, say, 8 or 7 p.m., you can't deceive yourself that as soon as they hit the bed, they'll start sleeping. Now, what a routine does is it allows the system to start shutting down before the time of sleep. And what that does is allows them to get good and very deep sleep. Something else you could do is to make sure that phones are removed from the equation long before sleep time. So you could plan a structure that flows in this order. You have meal time together, dinner time together. I don't know if you have your dinner together. And from that dinner, you have some family gist and chat time where everybody laughs and plays. And then once it's time for bed, everybody goes to bed. That way, the body and the biological clock begins to know when to start shutting down, and the sleep will be meaningful and refreshing. Not to allow your young person to go to bed with their phones and where you assume that they are sleeping. They are not. Allow them to scroll their phones 1 hour before bed. Trust me, it's going to take another 1 hour for them thinking about whatever they've scrolled about, whatever they've seen on their phones before they actually go to bed. So you need to create a constant routine that helps them to sleep well and sleep deep. Habit number 3, always assuming that your young person is right. And this happens a lot because, again, the natural tendency is for you to take the side of your young person. And we're not saying that you should never take the side of your young person. Neither are we saying you should always take the side of the school. What we are saying is you need to balance it carefully such that it doesn't create an impression in your young person that they could always find a way of spinning the story so you always land on their side. Because what that does to them is it stops them from taking responsibility. It stops them from engaging well with their learning, because learning would require negative, maybe not negative, but feedback that is not the kind of feedback you want to hear. Because if I give your young person as a teacher, if I give your young person a task, and they've refused to engage with that task, I need to be stern. I need to carefully and strongly let them understand that they need to engage with their work. If you've created a culture that makes them feel they are always right, that's going to lead to some conflict, and they are going to end up reporting that child. That child is going to end up getting into trouble. One of the biggest things you can do for a young person is to teach them to be able to take responsibility, to be able to say sorry, to be able to say, I didn't mean it that way. Can you please forgive me? Being responsible enough to take responsibility. That has a significant impact on how your young person engages with learning. And you wouldn't be helping them if every time you take their side. Again, let me carefully emphasize that there would be times where you would have to stand up for your young person, and even instances where I've had to disagree with teachers. I make sure the young person is not there because I don't want to give them that impression that I'm telling a teacher off on their behalf. I've had instances where I've had to show them that I stood up for them. That there was an instance where an adult behaved in a very responsible way to my son, and I confronted the adult right there and then in the presence of my son, because he needed to understand that if he's in the right, daddy will stand up for me. So it's that neat balance where you're not always presenting to your young person an opportunity for them to escape responsibility, but always giving them that chance to take responsibility of their learning, take responsibility of the things they need to do to learn properly. So here's the main point, if you don't remember anything. The point I'm making here is school success doesn't just start and end in school. Sometimes it begins from home. It begins from what we do as parents at home. And so quickly, may I ask for a favor? Could you leave a comment in the comment section telling me which of these 3 things you think shows up the most? Is it parents rescuing their children too quickly? Is it poor and bad sleep routine? Or is it parents always being quick to believe their children? Also, if you're a teacher, I'll need one specific favor from you. Could you please comment and let me understand what you might be seeing at school that you're sure begins from home that parents might not be seeing? And please, if this video made you think, made you consider some things, and you enjoyed any aspect of this video, please hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe and follow, because every week we bring you conversations that helps you build confident, future-ready teens. Thanks for now, and I'll see you again soon.